Hi, I'm Greg Gutfeld, but you already knew that. To the tease, Floyd. Tonight, why do liberals play down the terror threat following this week's GOP debate? We're about to hit them with a fact sandwich dipped in expert analysis. Plus, Putin praises Trump. Then Trump praises Putin. What's next? Opening a bed and breakfast in Prague? I hope so. They're delicious. And later, is it too much to ask social media outlets to help fight terror? The answer is no. Or yes. Frankly, I'm very confused. Let's get started, America. We've got a bucket of truth to eat. Let's welcome tonight's guest. It's so exciting. He's my favorite Carlson, aside from Gretchen. Fox and Friends weekend co-anchor Tucker Carlson. Nice hair. She's a Democratic pollster and a strategist, but we still like her anyway. It's Jessica Tarloff. And he's the missionary of moderation, Maajid Nawaz. I hope I said that correct.
You did, yes.
Thank you. Co-founder and chairman of Quilliam, a counter-extremism organization. Spent a lot of time in prison, an Egyptian prison. Top that. He's also the co-author of Islam and the Future of Tolerance with Sam Harris. She's probably still drunk from last night. It's Joanna Osaczynski. And she hates herself for being too negative. It's National Review reporter Katherine Timpf. To the monologue, everybody. It's fortified with fear. All right, before the Republican debaters were tucked into their beds, the media already had their angle. What's with all this ISIS crap?
We need to quit arming the allies of ISIS.
And destroying ISIS. To destroy ISIS.
Destroy ISIS.
On ISIS.
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 ISIS. ISIS. ISIS.
Who ISIS is. ISIS.
Said ISIS.
On ISIS. The war against ISIS.
If you drank every time you heard ISIS, you'd be more pickled than Lindsey Graham at a Benihana happy hour. The Daily Beast called it a GOP debate ISIS would love, saying, quote, if one of the goals of ISIS is to scare the American people, the GOP did them a service. So what happened to the real issues? Not a single thing about unisex bathrooms or the growing threat of misogynist Halloween costumes. Cultural appropriation of Native American headdresses, not there. The secret racism of Darth Vader. The sexism of The Legend of Zelda. Pets with gluten allergies. Pets with gluten allergies. Instead, it was this ISIS thing. ISIS this, ISIS that. But I ask, what if that debate had actually been the first one and not the fifth debate? The media would have mocked it even more, but maybe some people would be alive now that aren't. Fact is, if you think terror is the top priority, there's a pile of jerks who think you're silly. Screw them, I say, even if they're right. Fact is, I am terror crazy. I'm bat insane over it. My wife thinks I've lost it. She's worried that in a month I'll be living in a storage container with William Devane, reverse mortgaging both my gold and silver catheters. But frankly, if you're a neurotic weirdo like me and you're going to obsess over one thing, it might as well be this thing, not cattle flatulence or the Hollywood wage gap. So that's me, and maybe it's you too. We're all worried. It's a shame President Obama finds it overwrought. But I guess I feel the same about climate change. So let's make a deal, lefties. I won't mock your existential anxiety, and you won't mock mine. Call it the truce of the terrified. We can be scared together and hope that together we all turn out to be wrong.
Period.
All right, I want to go to you first, Maajid. Am I crazy? Have I gone too far?
Well, you're crazy, but...
Yeah.
But what's the question?
Are we obsessing too much about terror?
No, I think this is naturally what happens when we don't have a conversation we should have had a long, long time ago. And
yeah.
My fellow liberals and my fellow Muslims unfortunately, have been shutting this conversation down. And that's what happens when you take a young kid, they go to college, they've never drunk alcohol, they become 21, they can drink for the first time in their lives. And what happens is they go wild, right? So when you shut a conversation down in this way, and then suddenly the GOP debate has this conversation, of course it gets out of control, gets out of hand. But I want to say that when you do that, when you try and tell people that they mustn't talk about it, what you're really saying is they mustn't express themselves around this topic, and which means really don't think about it. And when you say don't think about it, the only people that gain from shutting down conversation and shutting down thought are the theocrats and the fascists, because, you know, when you can't speak about something, it only increases closed-mindedness. It only increases fear. And the theocrats and the fascists thrive on closed-mindedness and fear.
Also, it's by suppressing it, it does come out in other areas. It goes underground, and you don't know where it is. Much like Tucker, I never know where you are. You never worry about anything. I've never met a carefree person more than you.
That's true.
Are you worried about terror the way I am?
That is such a wise point, by the way. I feel like Christopher Hitchens is back in the room. That is, when you control what people say, you control what they think.
Yeah.
You see this with the immigration debate, too. It's been tamped down for years, and it emerges in the body of Donald Trump. There's a reason. I am worried about terrorism. I'm actually not worried about being killed by terror. I think that's like much less scary than Parkinson's or things that happen to average people. I'm worried about becoming Europe. A totally fractured society where freedom of expression is tamped down because of the lack of social cohesion they have there, where, you know, these are societies filled with anxiety, leaving aside the death toll, which is negligible, but there's a real toll nevertheless on the society where you have, a large resident group that hates the majority. You don't want that. You don't want to live in that world, and I am worried about that happening here.
Jessica, why do you want the apocalypse?
Give me a minute. Access my Dem talking points. It's really unseasonably hot out, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't want the apocalypse.
Nice.
Democrats don't want the apocalypse. As to your point, I mean, it was really well put, as was yours, Tucker. When people picked on the debate that it was too much ISIS talk, that was the topic for the debate.
Right.
I mean, you guys have like 75 million of them, and I know we're hiding ours Saturday nights, and no one's going to watch except me because I have to for work.
Well, technically, it already happened, Jessica.
Oh, look at what I just did. Hillary was amazing. She killed it. Not in the terror way. But what I would say is, you need people to be talking about it. And I think what was really interesting to me about the GOP debate on ISIS or on foreign policy and terror was the fact that no one but Lindsey Graham was actually espousing anything different than the Obama policy. They were just saying it louder.
What drives me crazy, Joanne, is that people get totally into terror, and then because of the security measures that are in place, people are actually forget about it because the stuff starts to work and they worry. They stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
No one's vigilant longer than a few months.
Right. Well, the thing that's scarier than terror is missing the signs of a terror attack, which is what happened in San Bernardino. We're like, what could we have done to have stopped this? So fear can actually be a great motivator, and it's important to be vigilant. And yes, while the odds of you ever being the victim of a terrorist attack are very slim, try telling that to one of the family members of a San Bernardino victim.
Yeah, but they also think, too, the thing is, the changing face of risk, you only need to be right once. And the way, by marrying this mindset to technology, that one instance could be far deadlier than anything we've ever seen, and I'm sure I hate to say it, I think it's happening. Kat, are you scared, Kat, or are you still thinking about Star Wars?
Look, I am never going to talk about Star Wars ever again. I'm so sick of talking about Star Wars. I am afraid, but at the same time, I think that we shouldn't be completely overrun by fear. Some people really are. For example, you are.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard you wouldn't even take the train.
Yes, I actually drove to Philly. I drove to Philly instead of taking the train. During, by the way, a rainstorm that was probably far less safe. I could have died.
100% true. So you're an example of someone that's overrun by fear.
Yes.
Which is kind of a problem. It can cloud your judgment. But then on the other hand, we do have Obama, who he's not just not passionate when he talks about it. He seems annoyed that he has to talk about it at all. And your number one job in the government is to keep us safe. I don't want to get my head blown off. Act like you at least care if I get my head blown off.
I think terror is his Katrina.
You know, this notion that it's got nothing to do with Islam, I really want to address that as a Muslim on your show.
Yeah.
I think it's as absurd as saying that the Sith Lord has nothing to do with the Force. Right?
Nice.
You know, at the end of the day, the Force can be used for good. And I kind of liken myself a bit to Luke Skywalker, but it can also be used for bad. And we've just got to acknowledge that the religion of Islam, it's as ridiculous as saying this ISIS is Islam as it is to say that they have nothing to do with Islam. They have something to do with Islam. Obviously, they have something to do with it, and we have to talk about that something.
See, I see myself as Roy Scheider in Jaws, and the shark is radical Islam.
Yes. And you're throwing a scuba tank into his mouth and then firing a gun into it, and he explodes.
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of how I look at it. At a rally last weekend, Chris Christie had this to say about fighting ISIS. More stuff.
The Jordanians understand it after they watched ISIS burn their pilot to death in a cage. Other countries in the Middle East have learned it as they watched their hostages beheaded on live television. These are animals that we need to bring the fight to.
Anything about that seem offensive? Let's turn to my favorite MSNBC host, Chris Matthews.
Animals. I mean, call them what they are, bad people, but what's this animal thing?
Well, you know, the Republicans...
that Christie's throwing around.
That's amazing.
I feel such shame.
you should feel. You know what? If we stopped calling them names, they wouldn't behead people.
Well,
and people ask me why I come on Fox and not MSNBC. I think we just figured it out. I mean, that's a microaggression, or maybe that's a macroaggression to Chris Matthews. I mean, the semantics of this, down to what you were talking about, is saying, you know, that it does have something to do with Islam. We need to be clear about that. You know, and to the debate that we've always been having about how the Obama administration and Hillary, they won't say it's radical Islamic terrorism, right? They'll just say it's radicalism or extremism. We are playing such ridiculous word games with an existential threat, the likes of we haven't seen an.
We get told to call them Daesh, not ISIS.
Yes.
Now, I want everyone to know I speak fluent Arabic. I graduated in the language. I will assure you, Greg, that Daesh means ISIS in Arabic. It is the exact Arabic equivalent acronym.
Yes.
It contains the word Islam in it. It contains the word state in it. So when they say they are not Islam and they are not a state, call them Daesh, you're saying they are Islam and a state in Arabic. That's all you're saying.
That's amazing.
It's so moronic, but it's also masochistic. I mean, who's the first one who's going to get thrown into a cage when the caliphate comes to Georgetown?
Chris Matthews. Yeah.
In Europe, by the way, the gay community in Paris pretty strongly in favor of Le Pen. Why? Because she seemed concerned about this. Why is it only in the United States? Maybe the one thing the American left and the Islamists have in common is they do hate the West. Except the American left is the beneficiary of, you know, the fruits of our prosperity and liberalism and all that, but they still, because they hate themselves. That's fine, just don't impose it on me.
Wasn't it more an insult to animals?
Oh, I think so. I mean, the semantic fight is the safe one. Why should it matter what we name them? Because, like piglets on a pig farm, you don't name them because they're going to slaughter. It doesn't matter. Let's focus on our real goal, and that's not, you know, fighting over words.
Piglets on a pig farm.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Did
the
you
only
prepare that,
animal.
or was that impromptu? Because that was really good.
Thank you. I think about bacon often.
Yeah, well, who doesn't? Kat, do you think ISIS ever really thinks about what they call us? Our enemies come up with great words about us, and we can't. It's not fair.
No, they don't think about that. They think about killing us, definitely. But this is an easier conversation to have. Oh, this word's bad, rather than actually coming up with a solution, which is hard. Because as you mentioned, we have to think about the civilians over there. We have to think about our civil liberties. But it doesn't really matter what we call them. It doesn't matter if it's hard. When it's this important, we need to figure out to do something and think of what to do.
My grim thought before we go to break is I don't think the mass shootings are actually the goal, because we eliminated airplanes, right? And so you can either go smaller or you can go larger. I don't think they're content with the shootings. I think they're going to be going larger than
That's
planes.
just to, like, pass the time?
Yeah,
like,
until they figure it out.
Yeah.
I think they're working 24/7 on a bigger thing that is biochemical. That's why I'm honestly going crazy. I know that I'm going crazy. I might buy those canisters of seeds, you know, that you keep.
I don't know.
No. You ever see the commercials?
No.
Well, so you buy these seeds, and then when the world gets totally annihilated, you replant it.
They're for your bug out kit?
Yeah.
Got it.
What was that movie with Brendan Fraser where he, like, emerges from the, you know, he's been living underground since, like, we were going to have nuclear war, and he comes up, and it's, like, 1992, which I think...
Blast from the past?
Yeah. You could be like that.
Yeah.
You could
that was
just,
isn't that great how I pretended I came up with that? The producer whispered it in my ear.
Really
I was about to say more like Will Smith and I Am Legend. But
yeah, exactly. Because nobody sees Brendan Fraser movies anymore.
No.
He's put on a lot of weight.
Liberals do.
Yeah.
Like Chris Christie.
I feel bad for him. All right, we got to take a break. We got so much more when we come back. Donald Trump's week, including a Valentine from Vlad, a Vladentine. Yeah, bad.